Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yes, welcome back.
Today we're going to be looking at GPTs.
Yeah, GPTs.
And we're not just talking about how to use them,
Right.
but how to make your own.
Yes, exactly.
And our main source today is a little unusual.
It is.
It's from the Japan Conference Interpreters Association.
Yeah, who would have thought?
I know, right? And it turns out there are all sorts of really cool things you can do with GPTs that I never even thought of.
Totally.
Like prepping for interpreting assignments, brainstorming keyword lists.
Yeah, great for research.
And even aligning translations.
Super useful.
But hold on,
Definitely.
before we get ahead of ourselves, maybe we should back up a bit.
Good idea.
For anyone who's not super familiar with this,
Sure.
what exactly is a GPT?
Well, you can think of it like a personal AI chatbot
Okay.
that you can train to do specific tasks.
So it's kind of like ChatGPT,
Sort of.
but more customized.
Exactly. Much more.
So instead of like telling ChatGPT to translate every time, you could have a GPT that just automatically translates anything you put in.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Wow, that would save so much time.
I know, right? That's what's so cool about GPTs.
Like having your own army of AI assistants.
Exactly.
Each one specialized in a particular task.
Makes things so much more efficient.
So what kind of specific GPT examples did you find in this Japan Conference Interpreters Association article?
Oh, there's some really interesting ones.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, first off, there's the translation GPT.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that one handles a bunch of different languages.
Not just Japanese.
Nope, multiple language pairs.
Interesting. And does it, like, work in real time?
I think so.
Oh, and the article actually includes a working example you can try it out yourself.
It does. Pretty cool, huh?
Very cool, very cool. Okay, what else?
Well, then there's this one called the Keyword List Maker GPT.
A keyword what?
The Keyword List Maker GPT.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
This one is super helpful for research.
Yeah.
Well, it analyzes tons of data
Okay.
and generates a targeted list of keywords for any topic.
Wow.
So instead of, manually going through everything.
Yeah, highlighting, taking notes.
Exactly.
Tedious.
It does all the heavy lifting for you.
So what kind of keywords are we talking about here?
Yeah, the article gave some interesting examples
Go
like
ahead.
U.S. presidential election
Okay.
or Company A's midterm management plan. Even things like measures for declining birth rate and aging population.
Wow, that's impressive.
And it's not just like basic terms either.
Really?
It digs deeper, identifies key players, emerging trends.
So it's almost like having an AI research assistant.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Okay, so I've got the translation GPT and the keyword list maker GPT.
Right.
What other GPTs are there?
Okay, well, this one's called the Translation Aligner GPT.
Translation aligner.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
So it takes, your source text and its translation, and it aligns them
Aligns them? Like how?
like paragraph by paragraph.
Oh, so everything stays organized and coherent.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be useful.
Super useful for speech writing, translating documents, stuff like that.
Okay, that one makes sense. Anything else?
Yeah, they talked about these expert GPTs,
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
like specialized in a certain field.
Right, right. Like, the article used this example about someone who was struggling to understand car terminology.
Oh yeah, the grill.
Yes, the grill. Like, imagine having a GPT that was trained specifically on car mechanics or something.
Right.
It could explain everything so clearly.
Without all the jargon.
Yeah, making complex topics accessible to anyone.
Exactly. It's like having an entire library of specialized knowledge at your fingertips.
This is blowing my mind.
Me too. And it got me thinking,
You're about.
if you can build expert GPTs for like industries, what about for hobbies?
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
Right. Like imagine a GPT that could help you plan a trip.
That would be amazing.
I know.
It could analyze your preferences, budget, all that stuff.
And then suggest destinations, create itineraries.
Even recommend hotels and restaurants.
You'd be like having a personalized travel agent.
Okay, we're getting a little carried away here.
Sorry.
No, this is fascinating, but we should probably talk about how to actually build these GPTs before we go any further.
Good point.
Because I have to admit, it sounds a little intimidating.
I know, right? But it's actually easier than you might think.
Really?
Yeah. And you don't need any coding skills.
Oh, thank goodness.
So you start with a paid ChatGPT Plus account.
Okay.
But don't worry, you can switch back to the free version afterward.
So you just need it temporarily for the GPT creation process.
Exactly.
Okay, and then what?
Then it's all done in plain language.
So no complicated code or anything?
Nope.
So how do you actually, like, train the GPT?
You basically just give it instructions.
Like you're explaining it to a human.
Pretty much.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get this.
Good. So you create the instructions, configure the settings, and then test it out.
And if it's not working right, you can adjust the instructions.
Exactly.
And then once it's working the way you want...
You can choose your sharing settings.
Oh, so you can share these GPTs with other people.
You can.
Interesting. So what are the options?
You can keep it private, just for yourself.
Okay.
Or share it with anyone who has the link.
Okay.
Or even put it on the GPT store.
Hold on, there's a GTT store.
Yeah.
Like an app store, but for GPTs.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Wow, this is getting more and more impressive by the minute.
Right.
But I imagine building a GPT isn't just a one-time thing.
It's not.
Like there's probably some maintenance involved.
Yeah, AI is constantly evolving.
So you might need to tweak things over time
Exactly.
to make sure it's still working correctly.
It's a bit like nurturing a digital assistant.
That's a good analogy.
Making sure it has the information it needs.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part...
We should mention that the article also talks about Google's version of this.
Oh, yeah. GEM.
Right, Jem. So where does that fit into all of this?
Well, it seems like it's still in the early stages.
Okay.
And one of the big limitations right now is that you can only use it individually.
So no sharing.
Not yet, no.
That seems like a pretty big drawback.
It is, especially if you want to collaborate or, build a community around GPTs.
Right, right.
So for now, it seems like the GPT system has the edge.
Interesting. So we covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about what GPTs are, how to build them, and even the competition.
Right.
But what's next?
Well, now that we have a good understanding of the basics,
Yes.
I think it's time to look at some real-world applications.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
In part 2, we'll dive into specific examples of how GPTs are being used in different industries.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Welcome back. Now that we've talked about what GPTs are and how to create them, I'm curious what kind of tasks popped into your head when we were talking about automating things with GPTs.
Oh, so many. Formatting documents, scheduling meetings, summarizing long articles, things like that.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this so exciting.
It is.
GPTs can do those things so efficiently. It frees up your time for more strategic or creative work.
Right. It's not just working faster, it's working smarter.
Exactly. And you know what really got me thinking?
What?
Those expert GPTs.
Oh, yeah.
That was mind-blowing.
I know, right?
Imagine having access to, specialized knowledge in such an easy-to-understand way.
Like having a team of consultants on call 247.
Exactly. And it made me think,
Yeah.
if you can build expert GPTs for industries, what about for more personal stuff?
Interesting.
Like hobbies or personal interests?
Oh, I like that.
Like imagine a GPT that could help you learn a new language.
Or give you personalized fitness advice.
Or help you write a novel.
So many possibilities.
It really feels like we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, there's so much potential here.
Totally. And I think as this technology keeps evolving, we're going to see even more creative uses for it.
Absolutely. So how do we actually go about building these GPTs?
Well, it's surprisingly straightforward.
Okay, good.
No coding required.
Yeah, that's a relief.
The article compared it to writing prompts for ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
It's all about giving the GPT clear instructions.
So it's like you're teaching it what to do.
Exactly. But the way you phrase things really matters.
So you can't just throw any old prompt at it.
Well, you could.
But you might not get the results you want. Interesting.
You need to be specific
Give clear instructions.
and use examples to show it what you mean.
It's almost like learning a new language, isn't it?
In a way, yes.
You're both learning how to communicate with each other.
I like that analogy.
And the article also emphasized the importance of testing and adjusting your GPT over time.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not a one-time setup.
AI is always learning, right?
So it's an ongoing process.
You might need to fine-tune things as you go.
Make sure it's still performing at its best.
Like giving your digital assistant a little pep talk.
I love that. Okay, so you've built your GPT, and it's working great.
What's next?
Can you share it?
You can.
That's so cool. So how does that work?
There are a few options.
Okay.
You can keep your GPT private.
Just for yourself.
Exactly.
That makes sense for some things.
Or you can share it with anyone who has a link.
Ah, so you could collaborate with colleagues or friends.
Yeah.
Create your own little AI network.
Love it. And if you think your GPT could be helpful to a wider audience,
Yeah.
you can submit it to the GPT store.
Hold on. There's a GPT store.
There is.
Seriously.
It's like an app store, but for GPTs.
People can browse and download GPTs that others have created?
That's the idea.
Wow, that's
Well,
incredible.
it's pretty amazing, right?
So you're not only creating your own tools, you're contributing to this whole ecosystem of AI innovation.
It's really exciting to see where this is all going.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up this part, we should probably mention GEM again.
Google's platform.
Yeah, because it's important to stay aware of what else is out there.
Nothing.
And the article pointed out some limitations with GEM, particularly when it comes to sharing.
Yeah, you can only use GEM individually right now.
No sharing at all.
Not yet.
Which means you can't really collaborate or build a community around it.
Right, which is a big difference compared to the GPT system.
Definitely something to keep in mind.
For sure. So to sum up,
Yeah.
building a GPT is surprisingly easy.
No coding necessary.
You just need to be clear with your instructions.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing learning process for both you and your GPT.
Okay, so we've talked about the how.
Yeah,
Now I'm really curious about the what.
real-world application.
Right. How are people actually using GPTs in their work and everyday lives?
That's a great question. And in part 3, we'll dive into some specific examples of how GPTs are being used across different industries and professions.
Awesome. I can't wait. All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into the world of GPTs.
We've talked about what they are, how to build them,
And now it's time to see how they're actually being used.
out in the wild.
Exactly. And our source, the Japan Conference Interpreters Association article,
Mm-hmm.
it has some really interesting examples.
It does. It makes sense that interpreters are like really into this.
Because language is their thing.
Right. They're all about processing information, communicating effectively.
And GPTs can be a huge help with that.
Huge.
Like, remember that example we talked about?
With the car grill.
Yes. Imagine you're an interpreter.
And you suddenly have to work on a presentation about cars.
Or engineering or something super technical.
Having an expert GPT that's trained on that specific terminology,
Would be a lifesaver.
it would. It's not about replacing the interpreter's skills.
Right.
It's about giving them an extra boost.
Helping them understand the nuances.
Like having a little expert in your pocket.
I love that. And it's not just about terminology either.
GPTs can help with all sorts of things.
Researching companies, understanding complex topics.
Even practicing language skills.
It's incredible.
And we're seeing this in other fields too.
Like,
Well, in marketing, for example,
okay.
GPTs are being used to generate content.
Right, blog posts, social media updates, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And personalize customer interactions.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like those chatbots you see on websites.
Right, right.
They can be powered by GPTs
So they can actually hold a conversation.
and provide helpful information.
Wow, that's pretty advanced.
It is. And GPTs can also analyze market trends.
Help marketers stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
What about healthcare? Any cool applications there?
Oh, tons. GPTs can streamline administrative tasks.
Like scheduling appointments.
Yeah. And help with patient communication.
Like explaining medical procedures in simple terms.
Exactly. They can even assist with diagnosis.
By analyzing patient records.
That's right. But of course, there are ethical considerations,
Right. We have to make sure these tools are being used responsibly.
especially in sensitive fields like healthcare.
Absolutely. Transparency and patient privacy are crucial.
Couldn't agree more.
But beyond these professional applications, GPTs can also be used in everyday life.
Like we talked about before, travel planning, cooking, personal finance,
GPTs can help us make better decisions
manage our time more effectively.
and pursue our passions.
It's really exciting.
So for anyone listening who's inspired to build their own GPT, what advice would you give them?
Start with a clear purpose.
Like, what problem are you trying to solve?
Exactly. Then think carefully about the instructions you give your GPT,
Be specific, use examples.
and don't be afraid to experiment.
It's all about trial and error.
Refining your instructions, seeing what works.
It's a learning process.
But it's so rewarding once you get the hang of it.
You can create some pretty amazing things.
And who knows, maybe you'll even share your creations with the world.
Contribute to the GPT ecosystem.
It's a collaborative effort, this whole AI thing.
We're all learning and growing together.
That's what makes it so exciting.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground.
From the basics of what GPTs are,
To how to build them and how they're being used.
we've even touched on some of the ethical considerations.
And the future of this rapidly evolving technology.
Hopefully this deep dive has sparked your curiosity
Inspired you to explore the world of GPTs.
and maybe even create something amazing yourself.
Thanks for joining us.